Hi, we've been talking a lot about outcomes as we move through today, and I want to talk to you about an important concept in your course, alignment. If things aren't aligned in your course will not be as effective as it could be. And I wish that aligning a course was always as easy as adjusting your glasses or fixing your collar. And in fact, if it was that easy, we could all go home. But it really isn't that difficult. And in fact, Quality Matters provides us with much guidance and assistance to ensure that our online courses, our blended courses, our competency-based courses, and even our traditional in the classroom courses can be continuously improved and can meet the standards of alignment. Now, what are we talking about alignment? What are we really talking about? Well, it sounds like a fancy word, alignment, and I wish it was as easy as fixing my collar. But basically what alignment means for purposes of Quality Matters is that a student, when they sign on to your course or they're in your course, a student should be able to see the relationship between your course outcomes, your weekly or module or unit outcomes, your assessments and measurements, the instructional materials you're providing, the learner's engagement and support, and the course technology, the technology that you're using to provide all of that within your course. So alignment means that there is a direct relationship, a direct link between all of those key elements of your course. Now, you already are providing all that in your course. What the Quality Matters rubric does is allows us to have a nationally recognized best practice model based on years and years of research of what makes a quality design for an online blended course. And again, we will be extrapolating that into our face-to-face courses also. So when we're looking at alignment, when we're looking at the standards, there are 41 specific standards in Quality Matters. And the online learning department took those 41 standards and created a new course template that would enable faculty to begin to meet the standards of Quality Matters as they are designing their course. And in fact, the Quality Matters program was really the foundation for the template, and the template is designed to help you meet the key factors of alignment. So in fact, each week in your course, in the template, you see that there's an introduction, which is no different than walking into a traditional course room and saying, hello students, here's what we're going to be discussing tonight. There's also a section for your learning objectives, and that's probably the newest part of this template, and it's really been the focus today, isn't it? Looking at student learning objectives, student learning outcomes. You have your learning objectives, then you have your section for the instructional materials that you'll be using to assist the student in meeting those outcomes, and then your assessment and your measurement. So we have that rubric has formulated the establishment of the new template that we will be using. And it's really focusing on alignment. Now, when you take the Applying the Quality Matters rubric course, you'll be getting this workbook. And this workbook focuses on all of the standards of review, 41 standards, and then gives you annotations that will explain to you how to meet those standards. Now, what I want to talk about today specifically is Standard 2, which is found in your handouts, your folder that you were given today for today's retreat. You will see this Quality Matters Rubric for Higher Education. Gives you a brief overview of Quality Matters if you haven't learned about it already in many of our presentations through online learning. But it will list all of the 41 standards that you may or may not have seen. And the 41 standards are broken into sections: the course overview and introduction, your learning objectives, your assessment and measurement, your instructional materials. Again, that sounds exactly like our template. Learner interaction engagement, course technology, learner support, and accessibility. And I'm not going to talk about accessibility issues today. We'll be talking about that as we move forward, we are looking at making sure that all of our courses are ADA compliant. Okay, with that said, if you look in here, although I have to admit, I usually don't like giving handouts to students because I know they're not going to listen, they're just going to read. But what I'd like you to do is to look in here at General Standard 2, Learning Objectives Competencies. And what you'll see at the top is 2.1 is the first alignment standard. And that's what we've been talking about all day. And that is that your course learning objectives describe outcomes that are measurable, objectives that are measurable. And we've been talking about program learning outcomes. We've been talking about course learning outcomes. Again, using outcomes and objectives, unfortunately, or fortunately, interchangeably. And that's what we've been talking about. And that's the first standard of alignment in Quality Matters. And in fact, it's so important that if the reviewers of a course do not see course learning outcomes that meet that standard, that are measurable, then the entire course will be sent back before a formal review will occur. And obviously from today, hopefully that would not happen to you because we have spent the time and begun to practice on writing effective course learning outcomes. But what I want to talk about is the module unit objectives, meaning that each week you are now required, or each unit, or each module, depending how you lay out your course, but each week, and you'll see in the template, it says weekly learning objectives. Each week you're going to tell your student what they are going to be expected to achieve during that week. And you'll see that standard 2.2 is that the module/unit learning objectives describe outcomes that are measurable and consistent with the course level outcomes. So what you are deciding to do each week must make a direct link, direct alignment to your overall course learning objectives. Now, this is the newest part of the template because many professors have become dependent over the years on the objectives for the chapter. And we're not going to be teaching anymore to our chapter. We're not going to be teaching to the clock, so we don't have to put a lot of filler in. And our weekly learning objectives need to be directly aligned with the course outcomes. And as you continue to look through this handout, you will also see that it's important that your learning objectives are written in a format, in a standard that your students can understand. Okay, all learning objectives are stated clearly and written from the student's perspective. Meaning you don't want to use technical terms, you don't want to use jargon of the field. You really want the objectives to be written in a way that your students can understand. And not only are they written in a way the student can understand, but they also need to be written so that a student knows clearly what they are supposed to do to meet the learning objectives for that week. And of course, your learning objectives each week should be, or must be, related to the level of the course. Now, we've given you a handout for Bloom's taxonomy and the various levels of Bloom's, from kind of beginning levels to more advanced levels, and we would assume that the levels of the lower level of Bloom's taxonomy would reflect the work in your lower level courses. And as we move up in our higher level courses, we should be having expectations and learning objectives that meet the higher level of Bloom's. So let's go back to 2.2. And 2.2 just gives us another example of what we've been talking about throughout the day, another example of the difference between a course learning objective and how to break that down to a weekly learning objective. So the example that Quality Matters gives us here is that you may have a course learning outcome that by the end of the course, the students will demonstrate a mastery of punctuation. Okay? Students will demonstrate a mastery of punctuation. That's your course learning outcome. Your weekly outcome could be 1 week or 1 unit, could be that your students will write sentences that demonstrate correct use of commas, semicolons, and periods. Now that is a very specific weekly learning objective that directly aligns to your course learning outcome. And that's what you want to do. Okay, you want your alignment to be that direct. Okay, and that's in standards, that's all highlighted here in standard 2. Now, the other standards of alignment, which you'll learn more about again when you're taking this course, are that not only do your course objectives align with your student learning objective, or your weekly learning objectives, excuse me, but you also want to make sure that your assessments are related to your stated learning objectives and that they're consistent with the activities and resources that you're using. So for the example we just gave, if your course learning outcome is that a student can use proper punctuation, you would not necessarily want to assess that only with the multiple choice test. You might want to have an essay test or an assessment that the student can demonstrate their ability to master punctuation, or specifically to demonstrate the use of periods and semicolons and colons. Or maybe a better example would be that if your objective was for your students to be able to make a persuasive speech, you would not assess that by a essay or a multiple choice test. There'd be better ways to assess that. So you want to make sure that your assessments align with your objectives. And that's another key piece of the Quality Matters alignment. Another area, another component of the alignment is that your instructional materials contribute to the achievement of your stated learning outcomes. And again, we're no longer really teaching to the clock, or we're not teaching a text. So the teaching of the clock issue is, most of us, if we really admitted it, we would know that over the years teaching, online and even in the classroom, that sometimes we would use materials or resources that might be filler. Now that may not be true for all the faculty sitting in the room today, but for many of us, and I'll even say myself included, sometimes I gave materials or used activities within the classroom, online or in the class, that was going to fill time. And really with the key of alignment, and in other words, that we're moving towards continuous improvement with the Quality Matters, we don't want to do that anymore. We want to make sure that the instructional materials that we give our students are going to meet our objectives. Okay, so it's important that you really think about what resources, materials you're using. And as you go through Quality Matters training, you'll also note that we're not saying that you should minimize the amount of work that you give students. We're just saying that it needs to be directly aligned, and you still can provide optional and required work. And it's very important to make sure that students understand what's required and what is optional. So that's another key of alignment, is to make sure that your instructional materials are contributing to the achievement of your stated course and unit learning objectives. One more area of alignment that you need to be looking at, and you'll learn more about in the Quality Matters course, is that your interactions, your activities, your use of discussion boards, your face-to-face discussion, your engagement, how you are having your students engage, really promotes the achievement of the learning objectives. And many of us use discussion boards, for example, and I have to say, taking some recent courses myself, even getting prepared to facilitate the Quality Matters rubric course, that sometimes I felt like the discussion boards or the ways that we were being asked to engage really wasn't aligned with the learning objectives. So you need to be thinking about that. We have some ideas for that within the online learning department, but really think about how you're getting your students to engage. Now, we all hopefully know that one of the keys for online courses is that sense of engagement. And we've incorporated some ideas of that within the course template, especially in the very first week, where we strongly suggest that you provide an introduction of yourself by audio or video, and that you also have your students do a similar type activity. But the key with the alignment of the learning activities is that they support active learning and that your students are clear of what is expected of them. There's two more areas of alignment I want to talk about quickly. One is to make sure that the tools and the media that you use support your learning activities. And we're talking about this course technology. So we don't want to use technology just for the sake of using technology. We want you to choose technology that will help you design your course to meet your learning objectives, and you need to be clear that your students understand how to use the various tools and media. So we're talking about tools, we're talking about discussion boards or chat rooms, your social media, your virtual classroom, your web conferencing. That's really what we're talking about. We're talking about tools, and then your media are more one-way delivery systems. So that's really like what I'm doing right now is an example of media. It's a one-way delivery system, and you want to make sure that the technology you use aligns with your assessments, aligns with your instructional materials, aligns with your learning objectives for the week, and also, of course, aligns with your course outcomes. So those are the a really quick overview of the standards of alignment, and I think that this will become much clearer for you when you're using Quality Matters, and you'll be hearing, when you learn about Quality Matters, and also when you use the required course template that we piloted for 2 semesters. And in a few minutes, for the rest of this presentation, you'll hear from your colleagues about how their use of a template to design their course has really helped them with alignment and with their course design.